the most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube. Welcome back to Swivel Chair Sports. I'm your host, Zach Circleberg Burkle, here with my co-host today, Aaron Joe Siege, and special guest, Reagan. Go ahead and say hi, guys.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Appreciate you being here. But for those who are watching, please make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content. Other than that, let's go ahead and get into it. So, in this video, we'll be talking about the outcomes of the college football semifinal bowl games. Alabama Crimson Tide took on the Michigan Wolverines in the Rose Bowl, while the Texas Longhorns took on the Washington Huskies in the All-State Sugar Bowl. So I guess we'll just go ahead and start with the Rose Bowl between Alabama and Michigan. Obviously, a really, really good game that came down to the wire late. I believe Alabama was able to push it in overtime there at the end of the fourth quarter, and then obviously Michigan came out on top, being the only team to score in overtime with the first set of downs. So, kind of, I guess, a disappointing end to Alabama's season. But Aaron, you being the fellow resident SEC fan, along with me, I guess, I kind of wanted to get your take on how you feel about Alabama after this game, because obviously not the outcome they were hoping for, but maybe some upside going forward.
It really kind of surprised me how bad they looked. They didn't really seem all that prepared to me. Their defense several times just let the running back run out of the backfield uncovered, and he caught the ball, and there's like nobody within 15 yards of him. Their offensive line, I think we all know that they looked really bad. They had trouble picking up blitzes and stunts. So I think it's probably one of the worst looking performances of Saban's kind of career. But that being said, Milroe could really develop into something in the offseason if he fixes kind of some of his problems pre-snap and works on his accuracy a little bit.
Yeah, Milroe, obviously an incredible athlete. So if he can figure out how to be a better passer of the football, which he's already decent, but if he can be even better, then that could take him a long way. Reagan, do you think this game kind of showed how good Michigan's gotten, or maybe how far Bama's kind of fallen off?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say this: Michigan saved the Big Ten with this. I mean, the Big Ten was falling it was a pretty embarrassing fashion. No, I think this shows how good Michigan is. That defensive front is pretty excellent. Remember, guys, this offensive line for Alabama, I think they have a true freshman, Proctor, at left tackle. They've given up 90-plus sacks this year, which is the most in Saban's tenure. So that's a pretty big tell. And when you're going to have mental mistakes like offsides and holding and these personal conduct penalties, they're going to kill you in the end, especially with a good team like Michigan. Also, I got to shout out Blake Corum. That man is a stud. He's good. I thought he was the best running back last year. I knew he got hurt. Just that score to go ahead in overtime just shows what kind of player he is. Great awareness, great footwork, excellent drive, excellent motor. I think this is well deserving. I think Alabama's going to be back next year, of course. But no, I think this is more of a tell of how good Michigan is, for sure.
Yeah. Obviously, Michigan won the game, so they're clearly the better team. I think you could say Michigan been dealing with those allegations all year of sign stealing, or at least the second half of the season. But Blake Corum showed out like he has for the majority of his career there in Michigan. And you got to wonder, is this enough to keep Jim Harbaugh at Michigan going forward? Obviously, there's talk of him signing an extension, but Siege, does this keep Jim Harbaugh at Michigan for the foreseeable future?
The foreseeable, yeah, I think, I think, I think it does. I think it does. I think it helps him keep his drive to be a college football coach at Michigan there, and just helps his mindset in that aspect. I mean, he's an interesting guy. He's a cheater. He got accused of cheating, which he did. He sat out his suspension, and then He calls J.J. McCarthy the best quarterback in Michigan football history, and I don't necessarily agree. I mean, yeah, he's good. I don't think he's the best passer that there is out there. I mean, the first play of the game, he threw a quote unquote interception. Luckily, the Alabama defender was out of bounds when he caught it. Like, you can't make those mistakes the first play of the game if you're gonna if your coach is gonna sit there and say you're the best quarterback in Michigan football history. I mean, I don't know. I like this Michigan team a lot. I think they're gonna put on a show in the national championship. But I'll save my thoughts on that for later on in the segment.
Do you think the looming potential like NCAA punishment for the alleged cheating could force them to the NFL?
What's the latest on that, other than the suspension he already sat out for?
Well, the suspension he already saw was Big Ten, and the NCAA is doing its own separate one. So I haven't really heard much. But
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the NCAA just like turns the other way and doesn't do anything, since he already sat out for a suspension for the Big Ten. Honestly,
I agree.
If they win, there's no way you can suspend them.
No, they're not going to suspend a winner. Not happening.
Yeah, no way. If Michigan wins, there's no way that Harbaugh's going to be suspended for any more games down the line. But assuming Harbaugh comes back, obviously you got Saban down in Alabama, two of the biggest head coaching names in the sport. Kind of makes you wonder which one of these two programs is set up better for the future. Obviously, there's a lot of different moving parts when it comes to recruiting these days. Not only do you have recruiting high school kids, you also have recruiting kids out of the transfer portal. But who do you have better set up for the future, Michigan or Alabama?
It's hard to say that now, considering the transfer portal is the way it is. Guys can literally go 2, 3, 4 schools and have no like punishment for it. I'm not like taking a stance on it. I'm just so like Texas can get the number 1 recruiting class next year. Half that recruiting class could be gone by the end of that season just because they're not starters.
Yep.
And then where do they go? Well, maybe they go to Alabama. Maybe they go somewhere. Or Bama every year gets 5-star recruits up and down and only start 22 guys. And then 10 of them are in the portal the next year now. So I'm going to say Bama is better set up for the future, but that's just because this was one of the sorrier looking Bama teams that we've seen the past few years. And those dudes made it to the college football playoffs and took it to overtime. Like, we've never seen a Bama offense not that good. So, considering I like Milroe, I think that dude has a cannon. I think if he can just tighten up on that, considering you gave up 90 sacks with what he can do with his legs too, tells you how horrendous that is for them. So, I think they obviously got holes to fix, but their holes are not as bad as other teams, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who can kind of remain on top now with the transfer portal and stuff like that going on now. But moving on to our second semifinal game of the weekend, Texas Longhorns versus the Washington Huskies, where Washington beat Texas 37-31 despite a valiant come from behind effort by the Longhorns. But Reagan, being our special guest Texas Longhorns fan.
Thank you. Bear with me,
ahead and
fellas.
let you
All
get,
right. So first,
whatever you
congratulations
need.
to Washington. I got to give them props for how good they were. Look, it's devastating. It's something I'm used to now, unfortunately, but I still will never waver in my spirit of following my horns. I went to Red River this year. Of course, everybody knows how that went. So, a couple of things here in terms of the analysis of the game. First, Michael Penix looked like he's the Heisman winner instead of Jane Daniels, in my opinion. But also, the secondary of the Longhorns is just horrendous. I know, look, it hurt. Jalen Catalon transferred out. Keaton Crawford's out. Derek Williams didn't play until the second half, but there's no excuse here. You have to play when the lights are shining the brightest. And they didn't perform. My biggest issue is we ran the ball, I think, 28 times. We should have ran it 55-plus times. I mean, there's no excuse for that. They could not stop the run at all. We could have told them we were running and they wouldn't stop it at all. Also, I really do appreciate the fight in the kids going down the fourth quarter. That almost was the greatest turnaround in college football history, in my opinion. But with 20 seconds left and you need 15 to 12 yards, every throw should be in the end zone. It is not a question. Everything should be going to the end zone. What lost us the game, in my opinion, is the pass to the flat. With 15 seconds left, that's inexcusable. I was literally shocked. I couldn't believe it. I mean, a 7-year-old could drop a better play than that. I didn't understand that. And I love Sark, but he's supposed to be an offensive genius, and that's what we get. I don't understand that. Xavier Worthy was non-existent. A.D. Mitchell finally came around at the end. Yes, not having Jonathan Brooks hurts. Has 1,300 rushing yards. But like I said, you're at the big stage. You got to compete and you got to earn it and you got to win when it matters. So credit to Washington for getting it done. And I think that they have the best trio in America in terms of receivers, and it's not close. By the way, emphasizing that nobody's close to what they have. I think they have three top. I know they have 3 top 15 receivers right now. And now I don't know if McMillan's coming out, but Jalen Polk and Rome Aduzier, they're top 15 talent in my opinion. So I think we're going to be back. I think I do have a hot take here from my perspective. Quinn Ewers is coming back, and by the way, I like Quinn. I think he will get beat by Arch next year, and Arch will be the starting quarterback. I think Arch will beat him out in the competition, and he will be the starting quarterback. That's my hot take. Now, look, I could be wrong. Like I said, that's why it's a hot take. But I think that Arch will be there next year, ready to roll. And I think that I don't know what's going to happen to Quinn. I know he still has the talent, but that's my hot take for it. And I hope we come back next year and win it all. Just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, well, as a fellow fan of a former Big 12 team that moved to the SEC, welcome. And
thank you. Appreciate it.
Good luck next year.
We're going to need it.
Oh, trust me. We know. But moving on to the siege, I believe you had Washington coming out on top of this game.
Yeah, me and Joe were both on the Husky train.
I was on the Huskies.
So
were we all on the
then?
Huskies except for you,
I
bro?
think everybody but Berg.
Thank you.
No, I mean, really, the only reason I went with Washington was because I feel like the only other team that Texas played all year that kind of matched up the same way that Washington does is OU. And we saw how that went earlier on in the season.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact that they're fast and they have really good lines.
Right.
And it worked out for the Huskies in the end. I thought Michael Penix just looked unbelievable out there, and he
Barbecue
actually
chicken.
Ridiculous.
for the first time this whole year he actually used his legs a little bit, like we saw when he was with Indiana a couple years ago before he got injured. He actually used his legs in crucial situations, and I think that could play into a bigger factor when it comes to the national championship game, dealing with the Michigan linemen. So I think he looked really good. Rome Odunze looked unbelievable.
My goodness.
And
So good.
I don't know, man. I was really hoping for, just talking about Arch for a second, I was really hoping, honestly, that Washington would have went down and scored a touchdown so we could have seen Arch there in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
See what he could do. I don't know. I think.
Ooh, a little Tua.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The Tua Jalen Hurts situation. That would
Yeah.
Game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, that would have been sweet. But no, I mean, I think that Texas just simply made too many mistakes, too many penalties, the butt fumble. That's kind of really what bit them in the butt at the end of the day. But
No pun intended.
it was a good game. Both these games were amazing.
Yes. Excellent games.
Yeah. I think it showed that the correct 4 teams were in there, and that Florida State, even though they're
We don't want to hear from them.
after getting dropped by 60, about how apparently Alabama didn't deserve to be in the national championship playoffs, but whatever. Uh, Joe, do you think Michael Penix showed enough to maybe garner being a first round pick this next
Oh, I have
upcoming
no
draft?
idea if that'll like make it in the first round for him. Like I think people are going based off just like one pure talent, and they all want Caleb Williams, Drake May, or Jaden Daniels. It has
Yep.
been those three. Well, it's been the other two, May and Caleb, all year. So like, I don't know if he gets him in the first round, but the fact that he shows up every game in the big moments, I mean, you can't. That's kind of like that it factor that they're looking for. But he's also 24. And then I just saw a picture the other day. Like Justin Fields is 22. Like if you're gonna draft a guy, like a lot of times almost like college basketball. Like if you're there too
Mhm.
long, they don't necessarily want you, no matter how good you turn out to be your last year. So
Right.
I don't know. I think he's worth a flyer. Hey, Pittsburgh can go and get him. I'm fine with that. Wouldn't
I
be
was about
mad
to,
to see him in the second round.
yeah, I was about to say I was wondering if you
He
would
does not want
like him
Kenny
in
Pickett
Pittsburgh.
leading the Steelers. Let me tell you that. There's no way. No way.
there's,
No,
there's still not
what?
enough on Pickett, but Mason Rudolph, man. Hope.
Hey, hey, Mason Rudolph's all of a sudden the best quarterback in Pittsburgh. I mean, I think that Miles Garrett kind of.
Mason Rudolph is
Um,
the first quarterback to throw for 250 yards and 2 touchdowns since 2021, since Big Ben retired.
crazy,
Oof.
crazy, crazy. But yeah, I think Miles Garrett kind of knocked him into being a
I
better
want
No,
to
I
ask
passer.
like
this to
Penix
Joe real
though, but
quick.
I don't think he's first rounder. I don't
I want to ask this.
yet.
I know since we just talked about the Steelers. Just quick note, Joe. Would you trade 2 first rounders for a starting quarterback to be able to get a Drake May or a Caleb, like something like that? Would you give up an exorbitant amount to be able to get that next quarterback?
No.
Okay.
Mike Tomlin just got his
I just
17th
wanted to ask
winning
that.
season. We're cool with Tomlin.
Okay.
We'll stick
I
to
just
our
wanted to ask that.
18th overall pick and 22 overall pick.
I just had to ask that. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, no. I guess Aaron, you being a fellow SEC fan, obviously Texas coming into the conference next year. Us being Missouri fans, we kind of know what it's like. Big 12 making that transition from the Big 12 to the SEC. Texas probably gonna have an easier time than we did. But do you kind of are you concerned as a Missouri fan of Texas kind of coming in and superseding Missouri in the rankings amongst the SEC teams? Um, or is Texas kind of like a flash in the pan situation?
I mean,
Maybe it's
yeah,
like
it is kind of a silly question. They're in the college football playoff. They beat Alabama earlier in the season, who's always in the college football playoff talk, who's always at the top of the SEC. So I don't think it's much of a surprise that they're going to come in ahead of us. It's not like they're not built like a typical Big 12 team. They got the line to be able to
yeah,
handle
that's
SEC
fair.
defensive lines. Um, sure, they could use some help in the secondary, but who couldn't? Most teams do. So I
Good
think
point.
it's
Fair, yeah.
I don't think it's too outlandish to say that they're going to be one of the best teams in the SEC coming in their first year.
Yeah, I mean,
Not to mention their two
obviously
star
that's a
quarterbacks. So that's more than most teams have.
Hey, I mean, Missouri's got their own star quarterback in Brady Cook, man. I mean, kid knows how to throw the rock around a
He
little
played
bit.
bad for three
Don't knock
quarters
it.
and just pulled it out of his ass at the end. You cannot say he's better.
Hey, man, a W is a W.
Cody
You
Schrader
beat
beat Ohio
Ohio
State.
Yeah,
State.
just Ohio State, not the Ohio State.
Yeah, there's a big
Who was
difference.
I
sitting out on
mean,
There's
for the first round
I mean,
pick?
big
Egbuka was
difference
playing.
for sure.
I don't know about that, but um, moving on to our national championship predictions. I guess I'll just get down to the nitty gritty. Start with you, Joe. Who do you have winning the national championship between the Washington Huskies and the Michigan Wolverines? You know, Michael Penix versus John Harbaugh for a chance at college football glory.
And you couldn't even give JJ McCarthy, other quarterback, all about Harbaugh. Uh, I'm. This is more of like a fan pick. I'm going for UW though. I want the last year of the Pac-12. I want the
I
West
get that.
Coast team I want them to go. I think Washington doesn't flinch. They give up points and stuff like that, but they just don't seem to flinch when it matters. So I think it's going to be another exciting game, just like these last two. As a fan, I personally would love to see overtime for the national
Of course.
championship,
Yeah,
but
that'd be
course.
great.
yeah, I'm gonna go with UW. I think Penix and those guys might just they get that ball last. Him and Rome Odunze for a catch to
Hmm.
win it all.
Yeah. Yeah, I think obviously Michael Penix is really bringing that big Penix energy recently. So, see who you got.
This game kind of reminds me of last year with Michigan and TCU. The TCU team from last year and Washington this year are kind of built similarly. Obviously, Washington has a couple more big name receivers than TCU did outside of
Mhm.
Quentin Johnston. But
Yeah.
it kind of reminds me of that game in the sense that Washington struggled against the run with Texas. Blake Corum in Michigan, they have a really good run game. I mean, one of the best
Yeah,
in the
that's
country.
fine.
And it's going to be up to Washington to stop Michigan's run game. That's all it's going to
Right.
come down to, I feel like. I think Washington's offense is too explosive for Michigan. And so, with that being said, I think Washington manages the run game well enough to get the win.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess if Washington
Okay.
can maintain quorum, then yeah, they've got as good a chance as any team.
Yeah, that's the key.
Reagan, who you got?
Uh, to me, these two are the best teams in the country. These are it's a national championship that I think that we all need to see. I don't know. You know, I like Washington here because, like I said, I mean that wide receiver core, that passing offense is just an elite power. But I'm actually going to go Michigan here, and I'll tell you why. Because I think that Jim Harbaugh, unlike Steve Sarkisian, by the way, I'm not trying to blast Steve here, but I think Jim is a what I mean by a game coach is that he doesn't go off of just his schemes, right? Like, oh well, I got to stick to my plan no matter what.
Right.
I think he's a game coach where he says, okay, I need to adjust like Bill Belichick does or like Nick Saban does. You know, I'm going to adjust within the game. And I think he's going to expose that rushing defense. But with Washington, Blake Corum, like I said, is still a top 3 running back in the country. And I also think that Michigan's got a better secondary than Texas does. And they have a better. Remember, we have the best interior line in the country with Devondre Sweat and Byron Murphy. They have the best edge rushers in the country. I would maybe top 3. Maybe I'm giving them a little bit of leeway here. But I think in the end, it will be a great game. But I think in the end, Michigan wins 35-28 in a thriller, and they can't stop the run. Washington can't.
Yeah, obviously quorum is great. Aaron, who you got?
I think this is going to be the most explosive offense that Michigan has seen this season.
I agree.
Dylan Johnson, hopefully his foot's healthy enough for him to go. I think he's a sneaky good back. And kind of like you guys said, it's going to come down to whether Washington can stop the run. I think they've got a good secondary, but that those linebackers could use a little work stepping up and stopping that run game.
Yeah.
I lean towards Washington. They've won close game after close game all year. That's just kind of how I feel. I feel like I would put more faith in Penix than McCarthy at this point.
Yeah, and I think that's totally fair. I mean, Michael Penix Jr. was a Heisman finalist for a reason. He's playing his best football right now. And I kind of agree with you there, Aaron. I think Washington's going to end up being one of the most explosive offenses that Michigan's seen all year. Outside of Ohio State, you know, Michigan's played a lot of defensive-minded teams up there in the Big Ten. So, you know, seeing a quarterback who can come in there, throw for 450 yards and 5 touchdowns, as well as run for maybe 50 plus yards and a touchdown or two. That's something that Michigan's not, I feel like, necessarily used to dealing with. And I think that's going to end up being a huge plus in Washington's favor. That extra explosiveness. And then, obviously, Washington also has the better ability to win if they're coming from behind with that explosive offense, being able to throw it down the field. So, I think with all that being said, I've got Michigan getting the running game going early, going up 10 at halftime, but then Washington finding a rhythm in the second half with that passing game, coming back to win it, come from behind fashion in the second half.
I think
I'm the
Michigan's
lone
like
wolf.
the biggest thing. They're gonna have to. If their pass rush shows up like it did against Bama, though, what 5-6 sacks in the first half,
It's good.
that's gonna be what changes the game. So it's either
Yeah.
gonna
And
be that D line versus Penix. Like, can Penix use his legs? I think Siege brought that up. Like, can he use his legs and take off running and buy time and make the plays? If he can do that, obviously, then we all have
Hey,
Washington pretty much.
Yeah.
all I'm
I
saying
wanna
is he beat Michigan with Indiana, so he's got more weapons now.
Ooh.
I want to give Washington's offensive line credit. By the way, guys,
Xavier
they
Worthy
are.
declared for the draft.
I know. I just saw that. Yep, officially. I want to give Washington's offensive line credit, though. They're excellent. They're one of the best in the country. And by the way, I know JJ might not be equivalent to Michael Penix in terms of talent, but I do think the experience is there. He's at the
That's
fourth
fair.
highest winning percentage in NCAA history for a starting quarterback. I think he's 26-1 now. So I think the experience is there. Like I said, maybe it comes down. I like Caleb DeBoer. I like him. But like I said, I think it comes down to those adjustments from Jim Harbaugh, and that's what I like. I don't think Sark did that, and I think that Jim will see that, and I think they'll just gash him for 200 yards rushing. Again, Washington's firepower is unbelievable, so
Right.
it makes sense to why people would pick Washington as well. So it makes sense.
Yeah. I think this is the most explosive offense Michigan's going to
Yeah,
face all
I do
year.
too.
So, in case y'all got anything else, I think that'll do it here for Wheelchair Sports, most unprofessional sports channel on YouTube. I've been your host, Circle here with my co-host today, Aaron, Joe, Siege,
I guess.
and
See you guys.
Deuces.